session, and I'm letting you know from now, thanks Justin, is we're going to try to work with you to identify very basic needs of your students that can be met online. Because as I said, we have to do this in a hurry. So what are the basic needs of your students for online that you have to meet or you should meet? We want to work out for you or help you determine how you can deliver what you call your content, and also most importantly facilitate that communication with your students, because that's one of the most important things we need right now. Get the students to what is it they need to know, what is it they need to understand from you. Okay. Also, we want you, what we're going to be doing is taking you through a that we've worked out that will help you transition to online teaching in the shortest possible time. And as I said, we know some of you will have already moved along that process, but we have to start at the beginning for those who have been left behind. Somebody's microphone is on. If you could please turn it off.
Is anyone hearing anything? I'm not hearing anything.
Hello? Hello?
Yes, I'm hearing. Yes, I'm hearing.
Yes, somebody, Josanne?
This is Tuan here. I'm hearing.
Yes, Josanne, could you turn off the microphone? Thanks. Okay. All right. So those are our objectives. These are the three main objectives we have for this session. Now, I want to share some considerations because even though we're doing this, we have to think about the backdrop to this. And so I want you to understand that one of the first things you need to look at is that your students must have some kind of reassurance that something is being done for them. All right. And I know some of you were supposed to have classes this week. You may not have had the class. Some of you would have had the class already. You know, you use whatever was at your disposal and so on. So those of you who haven't communicated with your students at all, please try to do so, if it's by email or whatever means necessary, and ensure them that something is being done. So we want you to have that as a consideration, even before we get into what are the tools and all those other things, so that we keep at the forefront, this is about our students as well. Just as you have your issues now in coping with all that's happening, they have too. So great. Excellent, Camille. So people are keeping up with that, so that's good. The second thing, again, I'm reiterating, this is not a workshop. It's going to be more of a seminar type informational session, but we also want to draw on you because we're using whatever you share with us to develop more materials and strategies that we'll be sharing with the wider campus. So just today, Justin and I worked on something, the 5 top questions for the week that we have sent out through Academic All, and we'll be continuing to share these issues that come up from you because you all are on the ground. So it's not a workshop, but we need your feedback as we go along, and we'll ask you at certain points for that feedback, and you could share in the chat continuously as well. The next thing is go easy on yourself with regard to IS expectations. I know we have some perfectionists here. I know we have some people who are a bit OCD probably, and you know you want to do the best you can. Yeah, and I know you all want to play on the whiteboard as well. But I'm asking you you need to know that we're starting off. So it doesn't have to be perfect, all right? And so all of this that I'm doing today with Justin is to help you all get started. We don't have the answer to everything, but we'll try our best to answer some of your questions. Right. We're also making some assumptions. And, well, based on what the assumptions that the university is making as well. So we're assuming that students already have experience using My Learning, and I'm just going to say this, I know most of you know what My Learning is, but just in case there's anybody who doesn't know what it is, My Learning is the St. Augustine campus's name for our virtual classroom. It is based on a software called Moodle. And so we call it My Learning, but the software is really Moodle. And we use that software, My Learning, which is our branding for it, is our virtual classroom. So that is what the students have been using as a virtual classroom. And that is what you will be expected to use as your space. We're assuming that the students have internet access, that they have access to a computer. I'm getting a little bit of feedback. Somebody's microphone is on, and I have to scroll through so many names to see it. Okay, I see it. All right. So we also assuming that you as a lecturer would be able to use self-instructional materials, and that using the self-instructional materials and with some help desk support, you can develop a basic online course. So these are the assumptions that we're going with. Okay. And so I'm going to pause, and I'm going to ask you all to just share thoughts in the chat. Now, we know for a fact that all your students will need access to their learning materials, right? We know that they all need to have that basic access to the software and so on. But apart from that, taking your perspective, you're on the ground with the students, tell us two other basic things that you feel that your students need to operate when you're thinking of online teaching and learning. What are two other basic things that your students need? So we know they need learning materials. We know they need to have internet access. Apart from that, what do you want to get out of online learning to be sure that the students get, if nothing else, minimum, other than the materials? Put that into the chat for us so that we could see. And while you're doing that, I'm going to be looking through the chat. So take 2 minutes, think about it. What do you want to do with your students? And the two main things that you need to do, other than provide materials to them. Right, so Maria is saying students need to interact with the lecturer and with each other. Correct. All right, Elizabeth, you want live group discussions. Carla, secure exams and quizzes. Okay, I'll get to the point of exams in a bit. Yes, Diane, you have your hand up. Diane Buckmeyer. You want to use the mic and say something, or that was a mistake?
Okay, just for the students to be able to.
Oh, we lost you, Diane. Okay, we lost Dan. Well, Dan, could you put it in the chat if you can? So, you know, what y'all are saying is basically what the other lecturers have been saying over the past few days. And what we saying, we're agreeing with you, and we're saying if we need to do this in a hurry, students need access to what we call the content, their lectures, their lecture notes, their readings, the course materials. They need to be able to submit assignments and receive feedback on their work in a secure environment when we're talking about assignments in particular. And they need to be able to communicate with other students and with the lecturer, which you all are saying, right? I know that Camille is saying that students need support and assurance, especially those who do not have access to any type of technology. And that is something that we would have to, as a university, figure out how are we going to address that. That hasn't been done as yet. Yeah, And for some courses, special software. I see Henry saying quantitative courses, diagrams, graphs, math solutions as though written on a board. Yes. And so all of those points are valid. Now, we can't treat with every one of them in the session, but what we're going to do is make some suggestions about how you could do some of it. Now, what we're saying is for those things that are more special, software, how to do something specific in a course and so on, we're asking people that you communicate with us directly, and we'll put an email in the chat at the end of the session, and you set up appointments where we could discuss that with you, because we can't address all of that in one session. Okay. Suan is saying one of our postgrad courses is based on peer review, and you'd like the students to be able to see each other's submission and evaluate. Right. So all of those things are doable. They're doable. Okay. And so if you look at this matrix we've done here, we've laid out on the left side what we want students, some of the basic needs of the students: access to lecturers, access to readings and course materials, assignments, communication. Now, most of us, I think, have a concern about what we used to do face-to-face. How can we do it in this environment? Now, we're suggesting several things. We want you all to realize that even though we're saying we're doing this in a hurry, we don't want you to be spending like 3 hours in an environment like this lecturing. Because what we're using today, this is Blackboard Collaborate, and this is one of the tools that we're suggesting people use for that face-to-face synchronous interaction. Now, you can turn on your camera so that the students see you, so it's a bit more human, but it usually takes up a lot more bandwidth. So if you have a large class, you want to minimize that. But the live lectures can be done using Blackboard Collaborate, and that is available through My E-Learning. You don't have to have any extra software or anything. It's in My E-Learning, right? Some departments also have Zoom, which is another software used like this to do web conferences and so on. And then we're also suggesting that you could use a mix where you record some of your lectures, or you do what we call screencasts or recordings over your PowerPoint slides, and supplement that with your face-to-face sessions, your real-time sessions, using something like Blackboard Collaborate, right? I'm going to hand over to Justin to talk a little bit about this whole thing of the synchronous sessions and how it could be done. And just quickly to show you that access to materials also easily done in Moodle, My Learning. Submission of assignments can be very safe and easily done through Moodle. Communication also through Moodle. And so I'll hand over to Justin to continue. Justin,
Hi,
are you there?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? Yeah?
Yes. Yes, I'm hearing you.
Just making sure. Okay, great. Just making sure. So yes, with regard to online lectures or live classes, you can do so using Blackboard or Moodle, or sorry, Blackboard or Zoom. But the difference between the two, and let me just say I recommend more Blackboard than Zoom for online classes, because Blackboard Collaborate is built for online or virtual classes. The features in Blackboard allow for more high-level engagement between you and your students, and whether it's a live session or even well, I wouldn't say a previously recorded session, but more so a live session. You can put them into breakout rooms, you can do polls, you can do set timers on certain things and that sort of thing to engage students in Blackboard Collaborate. Blackboard Collaborate, like I said, is more designed for online teaching and learning. Zoom, however, is like it's a web conferencing platform, which can be used for online classes, but you're not going to get much engagement. And if it's just a dissemination of information, if it's even an online meeting, you can use Zoom, but it's not. You're not going to get the best of the online teaching and learning experience. Added to that, if you use Blackboard, you're going to get more support from the campus as opposed to Zoom, because Blackboard is part and parcel of my learning. Then you have the Blackboard team, like the international Blackboard team, to address very serious concerns when necessary. So we have that support for Blackboard Collaborate as opposed to Zoom. I'm not saying you shouldn't use Zoom at all, but I'm just trying to explain the difference. And you could make a more informed decision in which one you should use or you can use in your course. Added to that, I think we might get into it a little later, but you could also create screencasts. Screencasts they're it's a type of podcasting, a type of a podcast. So you have audio podcast, you have video podcast. So audio podcast is just audio alone, like an MP3. Video, you might get just video footage in a podcast. But a screencast is where you record anything that's on your screen. Sometimes that might be a tutorial video of some sort, similar to how you would go to YouTube and see a tutorial video on how to do something online and so on, right? So you could create your own content and post that up as asynchronous material. Yeah? Dan?
Sorry, somebody asked if we could access the screencast-o-matic version that would record more than 15 minutes. We don't really suggest that you record more than 15 minutes. We suggest you record 15-minute chunks, and you have that, and so people could look at one video and the next video, rather than you have a half-hour thing and then people have to pause it and go on, and then attention span wanes and so on. Josanne, I'm asking if you could keep your microphone muted. There's a lot of feedback, so I muted you, but I'm just pointing it out so that because it's creating some feedback. Yes, there was another.
I was going to say as well that it's easier when you break it up in chunks to ensure that students actually remember the salient points of your entire what you're trying to cover, right? And I see that Ginger also has a comment, yes. To have it facilitate, to have a discussion, connective. I'm getting a little bit of feedback, but for your discussion, yes, Ginger, you're very much on point with that. What we suggest is that when you can do it both ways. You can either have a sort of discussion prior to your online discussion in My Learning, for example, prior to your screencast or your live Blackboard session, or you can have it as a follow-up. Yeah. So, for example, something might be you might do even a poll before the session, so you get an idea of preconceived notions students may have with regard to a particular topic, and then of course you address it in your live session or in your screencast, and then follow it up with an online discussion. So those are ways. Rajendra, very good. I think you're on point with that in terms of engaging students more than just disseminating information and passive teaching and learning. Yeah.
Yep. And so what I want to do now is, after having given you getting some feedback again, just to remind you all, please keep your microphones muted unless you want to say something. It causes a lot of feedback, so that's why you're hearing that noise. So we talked about some of the tools that are there on this slide. Let me just go back. So we're saying we have the My Learning, which we want you all to use as that virtual classroom. And you have your tools that could allow for this kind of interaction. This is one of them, Blackboard Collaborate, and there's also Zoom to some extent. And so, bearing in mind that you have those tools, what I want to take you through, and I know some of you would have done part of these steps already, but just the steps that you require to be able to move to that online course. And we're talking now about a course in our virtual space, My Learning. This is not to say that if you're doing something else already, that you can't continue to do that, but just to let you know that to take everybody from the beginning to the end, because there are some people who may never have done an online course. So those of you who are way ahead of the game, just bear with us for the first couple steps, and then we'll take it to the point where if you already have an online course going, how do you get that part with the real time or interaction taking place? So the first step we're suggesting, for those of you who've never used My Learning, for those of you who don't have what we call a course shell, is that you have to get what's called an enrollment key. Now, when I say a course shell, I'm talking about the space, the frame in My Learning that allows you to create your course. That's what we call in the course shell. And since we're saying that is your virtual classroom, you have to get a key to get into that classroom. And to access that enrollment key, you fill in a form which goes to campus IT. And so, and it's very quick because we recognize the situation we're in, and campus IT is moving quickly to give people keys, those who don't have keys. How do you apply for those keys? We have the email address there, and all of these things that we have here will be put in a resource space that Justin worked with SITS to create, and we're adding all these resources to it, so you can go on and see where to get your enrollment key and so on. You can also, if you simply Google My Learning, one of the links that will come up will take you to this site that you're seeing on the left, Campus IT Services, and there's a box there that allows you to click and access that form to ask for your enrollment key. Once you get your enrollment key and you log into My eLearning, again, you could log in right through that site as well, you will see this on the right, this login page where you have to put in your username and your password. Now, your username to get into My eLearning is your staff ID. Now, some people may say, well, I don't have a staff ID. As long as you're a member of staff of the UW, I suppose to have a staff ID. It should be on your pay slip, should be on your contract letter. You need to ask a department. If you don't have it, you need to work through maybe an AA in the department to try and get that, because you do need that, and you also need your your email, your UE email account. So these things you must have in order to be able to access My eLearning. Right, now once you access My eLearning, you've done your enrollment and you've gone into My eLearning, you will be taken to a page that's called a dashboard. And I've pulled out parts of that page just so you see, so that when you go in now, you won't be totally lost. The dashboard will allow you to see the courses that you could have access to. And if you're looking for your course and you don't see it immediately, you just scroll down the page. It should be there. If you don't see it there still because you have so many courses, then you scroll to the bottom of the page until you see search for courses, which is the third graphic you're seeing here, right? Also on that page, there is a list of self-help, self-instructional materials. And they're very easy to go through, and they're very simple to follow. That's our user support. There's support for My Learning, as well as for those of you who already use My Learning. You don't need that, but you may not have used this, Blackboard Collaborate. And so you just want a quick introduction to Blackboard Collaborate to use the tools. So the self-help, self-instructional videos are right here on that page as well. So once you get past that, you get your course, you click on it, you end up, you see your course shell. Now you see why we call it a shell, because it's just a bare bone structure. Think of it as your empty classroom. You don't have any materials, you don't have anything for your students, you don't even have chairs in there. It's just a room. So you now have to build that classroom for your students. You get in the room a notice board, which is what the news forum is. It allows you to, when you click on it, you could send messages to your students. The messages go straight to their UE, STA email accounts. They can't reply to you there. That's a notice board. It's only for you to send them messages. And then you have blocks where you can put in your information, your materials, your interaction, and so on. So I'll go to the next slide. So once you receive that shell and you have that empty shell, what do you do with it? If you've never done this before, what do you do with it? You need to go to the self-instructional materials and work through how you do each of the things we're going to suggest. And the thing that we're suggesting you use in order to build that structure in your classroom is your course outline. Your course outline is the thing that is going to allow you to put that structure on. I'll pause a little bit because I'm going to use feedback. Okay, right. And so you're using that course outline because your course outline, everybody's course outline should have in it a course calendar. And that calendar lists your topics, your assignments, your readings, and so on. At least that's the way it should be, all right? And so you're using that as your guide to flesh out that space, that course shell. And you're using your self-instructional materials to help you determine how do I get this stuff on, how do I create interaction, and so on. All right, so that's why we say ensure you have your detailed course outline. And in particular, because, and I think Camille raised this earlier, you need to be able to communicate with your students. One, we're suggesting you flesh out your course outline enough so that all the instructions are very clear and that is available there in my e-learning. All right. Now, the next thing we ask that you do is, because we're now moving online, and some of you may have 3-hour lectures, some of you may have 1-hour lectures, you know, it's a lot of face-to-face time, you may have field trips, whatever. I need you all to now work out what are the elements in your course that you definitely have to do online, and what are the elements in your course that you see now that the students can do on their own. That's something that you definitely have to work out as you move to online, because you have to reduce that face-to-face time and you have to find a way for the students to engage using the tools at your disposal. And that is one of the critical things in online learning. So I'm going to pause. I'll also give some people some time, those who still struggling to get on and so on. And this experience here is a typical example of what is going to happen as you use the tools and you have people who have different levels of access and so on. So it's an excellent example of what the classroom situation is going to be like. So one of the things that you may want to consider is, when you are having your sessions, nominate one of your students. Perhaps if you have postgrad students or so, make sure you either have smaller sessions so that you don't have 60 people in a group or more. And also if you have postgrad students who could help in the session to monitor chat and do other stuff. So these are things that you need to think about as well. But I want you to take 2 minutes, reflect on the lectures you currently do, and try to select what you think from all your topics in your course that the students can engage with via independent study. All right? And just jot down some things. You could write it down privately. People could share in the chat and so on if they want to. But I need you all to reflect on this now. What is it my students can do on their own? What do I really need to do with them in a synchronous session like this? I'll give you all 2 minutes to do that. Okay, so I'm seeing Suan clarify concepts, conversations, discuss assignments. People are presenting their personal narratives. Well, Maria, people could present their personal narratives just the way I'm presenting to you now. You send them the link for the course that day. They click on the link, they come in, they do their bit, and that's it. So that's quite easy.
And I want to add to that, because you're doing it asynchronously, you could take that approach as well,
Good point.
where you can have them create. Sorry?
I said good point.
Hello? Oh, yeah. And you can have them create different avenues or different presentations, whether it's group or collaborative thing or individual thing. They could create, be more creative, I guess, in this regard, and create presentations, whether it's using different platforms and so on, to do their personal narratives.
Okay, and just to fill in those, because I'm seeing William asking if we're going to discuss asynchronous learning. Yes, this platform can store your lectures so that students can access them at their convenience. It doesn't store them. What we do is we record the sessions, and then you can have the students go back and listen to the recordings. What we're doing in this session today, William, is it's not a training session, it's not a workshop. It's a seminar intended to give you an overview of what is available on the campus for both asynchronous and synchronous learning. And the asynchronous learning we're suggesting could be done using my e-learning and the various tools in there, along with linking to other tools that may be outside of my e-learning that we could integrate. So that's what we will be suggesting for the asynchronous, and for the synchronous, we suggest in Blackboard Collaborate first choice, and alternatively Zoom. Zoom if you have it in your department and you're more comfortable with that. But our first choice is Blackboard Collaborate because of all the tools that it has for specifically for teaching and learning, and because it's already integrated in my e-learning. So you could actually have the link in there where the students click and go into the next classroom. It's like a classroom inside your classroom.
Also, I think as William raised that point, it's another reason why we want to lean more towards Blackboard Collaborate, because once you record your session, Blackboard stores it stores in my learning, because Blackboard and my learning are integrated. So students can simply go in the recording section of Blackboard in my learning and access the recordings for subsequent review.
Right. So all the people who have been dropping in and out of the session today, and that will more than likely happen with your students too, depending on where they're accessing from. Once you record, they can, even though they were dropping in and out, they could go back now and listen to that to get what they missed. All right. So that is why we're suggesting that you try not to have too many long lectures on the synchronous systems, that you use it for that interaction. Things like you have guest lectures if you want somebody special and they don't want to record something, they just want to come and present so you could get the questions and answers. things like if you want to have your students present there on the spot, if you want to discuss a topic, those kinds of things. Now, what you're seeing on the screen now is, remember I showed you your shell, your empty shell. So for those of you who never did this before, when you fill in your shell, this is how it may look, it can look. This is just one way. We suggest, though, we recommend that you always try to have your little course description or welcome note or something at the top, a graphic, and so on. And then, of course, your news forum, where you're going to post your bulletins, your news announcements, instructions to the students. And we suggest you create another forum where students can ask questions, broader questions and concerns, because the news forum is one way. So you need something where the students could communicate back with you. So we suggest you create other discussion forums, either topic related or general. And that at the top of your course, you ensure that you put your course outline or a filled out full course guide that will give the students instructions. And then your topic, each topic in your course, if you're doing it by topic, then you would want to ensure you have your notes or any recordings, your online activities, and so on related, your readings, resources related to that topic in one space. So this is one way how it could look. Now, this is really too for people who have never done it. Those of you who have done this before and you have a system that works, a structure that works, a structure that your students are familiar with, that's fine too. But remember, we're catering for both ends of the scale, right? Okay, so we're on to step 5 in the transition now, and we're saying that if you have your readings, your course materials, and lecture notes, you make sure that you have that uploaded once you get your shell. And that's why I showed you what it could look like, so that you're not thinking, okay, what do I do with this? Where do I put it? You can relate it to your topic, structure your readings and so on related to your topic. And if you're doing that, the students will get accustomed to that, and they know when I come into Dr. So-and-so's course, this is what it looks like, this is where I'll find this is where I'll find that. So find a structure that works, that's clear, that's easy to follow, that makes sense, and that's related to your course outline. All right. Justin, you want to take over this part, creating the forum and so on?
Sure. So once you create all your your course materials, your reading materials, etc., etc., you also, because that is something that students can do independently, they can just log into your course and access the reading materials, the videos that you might have there. Let me just back up a little bit. Same number 5, because Virginia was asking a question on screencast as opposed to YouTube. And we were saying that we want to, they're two different platforms, but you're using the two of them to have a post in My Learning, to post your videos or whatever. So the trick is really that we're suggesting is to create your screencast using whatever platform that is easy for you to use, and there's the resource website that will show at the end has some suggestions, some tools, and so on that you could look at. Once you create a screencast, you add it, you upload it into YouTube. Now YouTube, once you have a Gmail account, you automatically have a YouTube account, a YouTube channel. So you just go to YouTube and click sign in at the top right side of the screen. There's usually a blue button, and you just insert your normal Gmail login credentials, and that's it. Your YouTube channel is set. So you could upload it there, and then you're gonna take the link for that video and post it into My Learning, your My Learning course. You do it normally when you want to post a normal YouTube video into your course. You just use a URL. It's the same thing. This time it's just your content. Now, and I know I kind of jump in things a little bit, because we're gonna get into that in terms of the synchronous and then by extension asynchronous material. But you can, so once you upload it there, that's that. The next thing you might want to be mindful of is the permissions. Now you could set in YouTube, once it's in YouTube, you can set the permissions accordingly. You have 3 options: public, private, or unlisted. when you're uploading a video, if you want it to be or screencast, sorry, if you want it to be available or accessible to the entire world, you can click public, right? That means anybody from anywhere could search it and probably use it for their educational purposes. If it's private, then only you can see it, which is what you probably don't want because you're creating it for your students to view. In which case, if you don't want it entirely public, you can set it as unlisted, right? It might be used. Yes, William. That it of course it's your preference. Yeah. If you want a separate Gmail account for YouTube, that is all well and good. So yeah, you could consider that. And there are also other platforms you might want to consider. YouTube is not the only one. You have different platforms, Khan Academy and all these other things that you can use. YouTube just happens to be the largest, so and the most popular. So yeah. Right, so that's that. So as we move forward into create forum for queries, so once you have your content, you want to have an avenue for communication, right? Because we know that online learning can seem it's easy to feel isolated, yeah, in an online course. So what you want to do is create a platform or an avenue in My Learning where students can pose questions, state their queries, and it's also an avenue where you can respond to those questions and queries when necessary. Of course, now that it's online, you're probably going to have to keep a close watch on it. So I would recommend that you check it at least twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening or afternoon, just so you have a quick turnaround time in terms of your response. Yeah, and that takes us also alluding also to one of the last points there. So with regard to creating forum for queries, this is where students this is where we have communication between lecturers and students, right? And it's not the only platform for that. So you could easily create that forum in My Learning, and you could easily upload your course content. When we show you the resource site before the end of this session, you're going to see where all that training material, all that self-paced, self-directed learning material, all those resources, you're going to see it there. So we're not going to leave it to sink in the deep, right? We're here to help. So the next thing you want to look at is the synchronous sessions, or asynchronous sessions. You want to have a schedule of these sessions. It's always good, like at the beginning, especially if you're going to resume teaching next week, you want to let students know off the bat that these are the different days that we're going to have these different sessions. That way, that we're going to meet online, whether it's Blackboard or on Zoom. And that way, students can put the necessary things in place to ensure that they are present for those online sessions, right? And like we said, we can't even have...
Sorry, Dustin,
Sure,
sorry.
sure.
Yeah, no, with that, I just want to remind people that what we're suggesting is that they use, for the synchronous sessions, they use time that has already been scheduled for their face-to-face, so that way you avoid possible clashes.
Yes,
Yeah?
that is true.
Right.
And in some instances, you may not require a virtual session, a BBC session. It might very well be that you have an array of activities or tasks that they need to complete within that week instead of meeting face to face. You understand what I'm saying? So it might be just a project they have to work on, an activity they have to do, a discussion they have to post in, that kind of thing. How do we deal with the required 75% attendance
I
issue?
think that is the least of your worry at this point in
Yeah,
time, not the
Dollar.
self-attendance issue. But that is something that we will take to the higher authorities, let's put it that way. But for now, I don't think you should concern yourself with that. And you can see if people are logged in. You can see if people are logged into Learning Management System. You can see if people are logged into Blackboard Collaborate. So you will know, even if it still applies.
Right. I was just gonna say that it probably is more. It's easier to monitor that in the online environment because, as you could see in Blackboard here, you could see exactly who's here, and of course in the online in My Learning, we could see who logged in when and where and even what they clicked. So hopefully that helps, Priscilla.
Crystal has a
Oh, I
Go ahead,
also have a
Priscilla.
suggestion. You hear me? I have a suggestion.
Yes.
Are you
Oh,
hearing me? Okay.
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So, even though let's say that you have the live BBC and they cannot attend for one reason or the other, in your e-learning space, you can post like a discussion forum with a question and ask that the students answer the question, let's say within that week. So in that way, you kind of guarantee their attendance because you're mandating they to engage in those activities. Or it doesn't have to be a discussion forum. You could just put up like a 5-question quiz that's not graded, but that's just for them to partake.
Right, so you're suggesting participation activities and that you look for
Yes.
participation rather than
Yeah.
attendance.
Correct.
Good
Yes.
point.
That is you're very much on point, Carla. Yes. So yeah, so those are, and you may not, and if you're doing that, you may not necessarily need a full BBC session, a long-winded BBC session, because you're engaging them in other avenues, right? With regard to creating a course communication plan, I kind of alluded to this earlier, that we could, this is where you set the protocols and the expectations ahead of time, right? You share it with your students, so they need to know what course of action they can take with regard to communicating if there's an urgent issue, if they have a question, what is the time lapse between when they pose a question or a query and when you respond, right? And like I said, if you're doing that, of course, a good way is to check the forum morning and evening. Also, how do they upload assignments? Where you need to state the instructions for each activity, whether they are uploading documents, whether they are posting just a link, a URL to something that they created, and of course how they can do group work online. So what support do they have? Because a part of this is also student support. And when we show you the resource website, it's for both staff and students. So there's a drop-down menu for staff, a drop-down menu for students. On Blackboard, My Learning, other technologies they can use for, let's say, collaborative learning and that sort of thing. So, so you might want to share that with them as well. And of course, any other, number 9, so we've already covered BBC, we've already covered My Learning. You might have other tools that you might want to explore, and you might want to, it might be easy to integrate into your course. By all means, you can do that. Of course, once it fits with the instructional design and the objectives of whatever you're trying to accomplish, your learning objectives. So, and the training resource, the resource website, sorry, has some tools that you might be interested in. What we try to do is include mainly tools that are easy to use. So it should not take a whole lot of time to either incorporate them or use them. Because you could use them, or you can have students use them to complete certain tasks. In one of the previous sessions, I think it was this morning, one of the platforms we were suggesting was Google Docs. Students can use that to collaborate on. Google Docs will, of course, refers to not just documents, but not just Word documents, but presentations, slides, or forms, or whatever. Those are easy ways for students to collaborate on different projects, right? So yeah, by all means, feel free to explore different tools, but it helps if you explore it and become a little familiar with it before you implement it or integrate it into your course. All right, so when we share the website by the end of the session, you'll see some of the tools, and of course, we keep adding to those as we go on. And in some cases, you might even have a tool that you might want to suggest, and we could try to incorporate it in that as well. All right. Now, let me just say one thing before I hand over to Dianne. The tools that we have there, it's very limited because we didn't want to overwhelm you with a whole bunch of things. But they also, in addition to a description, we have the pros and cons of each tool, so you kind of could make a more informed decision on how to use it in your course. How to monitor attendance, is that in Blackboard or in My Learning?
Shivananda, you
Yeah.
asked how to monitor attendance. So we
Yeah.
are asking you
You
in
hear me?
in small group teaching? Yes.
Yeah. In a small group teaching, we need attendance. We have some marks for them, you know, how to
Yes.
monitor that, whether they're present, whether they're interacting, all those things.
Right.
Is it that they're going to be off doing it in my e-learning, or is it that they're going to be doing it synchronously in Blackboard Collaborate?
Blackboard collaborate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you could record the sessions that they're in so that you'll know who is there.
Okay.
That's
Right.
one.
Okay.
And to test to monitor, so that's for attendance as well. And of course, participation is something that you could look at. Now, you might want to, in Blackboard, you might want to look at the breakout rooms. And I don't know if you have
Okay.
teaching assistants who might be able to guide students in those breakout rooms to ensure that they are actively doing what they're supposed to be doing. Now,
Okay.
breakout rooms are just like small little tutorial rooms, but you get to monitor everything. And students can talk in there, can share documents, can, do different things. And then they can come back to present it to a larger class if necessary,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
so I think, yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I was
I
waiting
thought,
for you to finish. So I
oh
just
yeah,
want to
I was
jump
gonna
in.
say, yeah, go
Yes.
ahead.
Yeah, I was going to jump in on point 9 because that's where we're saying, as we said initially, this is we want you to do startup. But for those of you who already did startup and you want to start adding your interactive features, then please do so. And if you feel you want to ask anything about that later on, in case we have any other tools that might be useful, then you're free to do that. But what we trying to do is to lay out the groundwork for the basic, right? Now, somebody's saying here, if your department has run out of Zoom licenses, you can sign up for a free account, and that gives you 40 minutes meeting time for up to 100 persons. That's excellent, and that's true. So you could also do that. So you don't have to depend on Blackboard Collaborate. Some lecturers have been using Google Hangouts for small groups. You might want to do that as well. We're not stopping people from using other tools, but we're just suggesting that you do have that core virtual classroom in My Learning. William Smith is asking about hanging out sessions for employees. We haven't heard about that being encouraged here yet, William, and I don't know if it will be, but it's something that we could put down as something that you all raised in this session. Yes, the audio and the video will be recorded in Blackboard Collaborate, Rajendra. So this next slide that I'm showing you is really about, for those of you who are at that point where you have your virtual classroom created, and now you want to add that element of the synchronous part. And the site there, and of course the materials that we provide on the resource site will include this. If you click on the link that I have noted here, it takes you to this page, which provides self-instructional materials on Blackboard Collaborate, using Blackboard Collaborate. And when we say BBC, we really mean Blackboard Collaborate, but BBC is a short name for it. And there's a very good self-instructional video on how you add Blackboard Collaborate to your My Learning course page. I know it's a lot of information we're piling on you, but that's why we're going to make the recording available. And we couldn't do it in any other way, and so just bear with us. So you go to the site, and the materials will be here, and it will take you through. Just to show you how simple it is for those of you who, and remember, this is for people who are already using My e-learning. This is not a training, it's just an overview, so people who are already using My e-learning could see how simple it is to do it. And for those of you in My learning, you know that there's material at the bottom of the page that gives you support all your My Learning guides with how you upload material, etc., etc. And there's also the Blackboard Collaborate. How do you use Blackboard Collaborate? Right? Now, in your course, remember when I showed you the course shell, in your course, those of you who are already using My Learning, you know that to do anything in there, the first thing you have to do is to edit, right? To turn editing on. And when you turn editing on, to get to that place where you can access Blackboard Collaborate, you need to click on this link, add an activity or resource. So wherever you want to add that Blackboard Collaborate session, you're going to be clicking on add an activity or resource. This will come up, that menu that allows you to select the tool that you're using, and the tool that you want to use is Blackboard Collaborate Ultra, and that is what will help you add that link to your course that will take you to the room. When you add it, it comes onto your page with whatever name you give it. I called it Live Classroom for this. So it comes on your page, and then you click it and you have to create the session. This allows you to create 1, 2, how many sessions you want in that course. And so you create your session, you give it a name, right? You give it a name, and then, oops, sorry, went too far. You give it a name, and then that is the link that you will be using for your classes. Yes, and then you will, sorry, you will get once you set it to record, the recordings will be generated, and you can have the recordings there in My eLearning. Justin, want to talk a bit about that? Because people are
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. Just go back a little bit, please. To the previous slide. One of the things there is that the advantage of using this approach as well is that you don't have to share links with anybody. When you log in, you automatically log in when you click on it, it takes you as you enter the room, sorry, as the teacher or moderator. When students enter, they enter as a student, so they by default get a student link, right? So you don't have to email anything to students unless they have some difficulty accessing the platform. And that may be a caveat right there. But yeah, so you don't have to worry about mixing up or confusing links and so on to the room. It's all there. Now, if you notice on this same slide, next where you see those 3 lines in the black strip, those 3 lines on the left side. Once students click there, and I think this, and I'm referring to what William was asking before with regard to recordings and where they will be stored. Those 3 lines at the corner there on the top left side are in this slide. That's a menu there, sort of drop-down menu. So when students click on that, they're going to see sessions, and the next part of the menu is going to be, the next item will be recordings. When they click on recordings, it will show all the sessions that have been recorded in the course, all the BBC sessions. So that's just something for you to know. So you have, it's sort of like a one-stop shop. Once you create it, you don't have to send the links to them. You don't have to create a URL. Sorry, you don't have to send the recordings to them. You don't have to create a link for the recordings or anything like that. It's all there. All right. So, yeah, I think that's about it, Dan. Thanks. With regard to this slide, this is sort of in a nutshell what we were covering as in terms of what you will need. We have, of course, My Learning, where you would store all your upload all your content, all your your files, whether they're MP3s, MP4s, images, because I know in medical sciences, you need a lot of graphics there. So you have that, Word documents, present PowerPoint, Excel, etc. And then of course you're gonna have more novel content, such as your screencasts, your whatever other videos and audio material you might have. All right. Now the thing is, let me just go back a bit. Even though we said you could use YouTube, you can also store your things in Google. If you have a Gmail account, you could store it in your Google Drive. All right, and you just put the link into My Learning. That works as well, whether it's a video or a file or anything of that nature. And of course, Blackboard or Zoom for your live or synchronous or asynchronous sessions. Yeah, so this is kind of in a nutshell some of the main things that you need as you transition into your online teaching and learning experience.
Okay. And this is just a summary of what we talked about today, just to go over it, right? And we're saying, remember, the intention is to get your head in that space, get you started, share with you some of the tools that are available for those of you who don't know what's there. Be here for if you have any questions that we may be able to answer. If we can't, we could do some research to help you, because there's a lot of material out there, there's a lot of stuff out there, but you want to get this done quickly. So we're saying steps for those of you who've never done it: ensure you have a course shell to develop your online course in My Learning. To get that course shell, you have to request your enrollment key to get into the shell. So even though you may be able to get into My eLearning, even if you've had courses in My Learning before, to get every semester to get your new shell, you need to request that enrollment key. Once you get your course shell, if you've never done it before, again, your course outline is the best tool to use to guide you through developing that structure for your course. Use your course topics and your course calendar as that guide. Prepare a proper course guide for students so that they have the instructions on their assignments, when it is to be submitted, and particularly when they could expect to get feedback from you, because they're going to be looking out and asking, I submitted something, when will you respond, right? Work out all those things that don't require real-time face-to-face interaction, and prepare materials and activities that will allow your students to engage with them, to be able to learn. We call it, give them assessments for learning, not necessarily assessments of learning during the course. Assessments that can help them learn and that you will be giving them feedback on. And so you have to work that out. And those things can replace what you might have done in a face-to-face lecture by just giving information. Ensure that you have your course materials, create forums for queries and communication, and make sure you schedule any synchronous lectures to avoid clashes. And most of all, create some kind of plan on how you're going to communicate with your students. Now, if you want to research projects for correction, that's what you use the assignments tool in My eLearning for. The students upload it, you go in, you will see them, you can download them, you can put the feedback in there, in the space, you can grade in there, and the feedback will go back to the students. And so, yeah, so this is where we are. And as I said, this is not a training session, so we don't want to take you through how to use the tools here. There are 50-something people here. What we would want to do is to encourage you to go through the self-instructional materials first, see if you can understand, and if you can't, you email us, and I'll put the email in where you could email us, and you schedule a time for us to take you through. But we want you to try to use the self-instructional materials first, which is very simple and straightforward. Students can deliver group presentations on Blackboard, collaborate, yes. And so I'm going to stop so you all could ask questions. I see Anne has her hand up. Anne, do you have a question?
Question, comment. One, we could use Turnitin as a means of setting assignments and getting them marked, which is what I've been using all along.
Okay.
And
sorry, let me just, before you go on to the next point. Turnitin, you have what's called a Turnitin assignment. The tool is really the assignments tool. A Turnitin assignment allows you to do checking for similarities with things that are on the internet. So what you're really using is the assignments tool, but there's a Turnitin assignments tool, which is different because it allows for checking whether people have taken stuff straight from the internet. I don't like to call it a plagiarism check because it doesn't really check for plagiarism. It checks for similarities and other things. So yes, you could use that, but that is an assignment tool. It's not a it's that's what it is, the Moodle assignments tool, but it's using Turnitin software to check for similarities. So
Yes,
thanks
and
for that.
that's why I use it for like project assignments. The next thing is for those people who've been falling on and off, what I found was I went to using Firefox and I have been able to stay on, as opposed to the Chrome, which was suggested for Blackboard in another session. I found that I was using Chrome and it just kept knocking me off. But when I used Firefox, if it helps anybody, that's how I was able to stay on.
Excellent. Well, thanks for sharing that. I wasn't aware, but that's excellent. That's good to know because I'm actually on Firefox. And I'm on
Okay.
Firefox because when I use Chrome, certain features I can't use for some reason. But I thought it was my system. But now that you're saying that, it might be good for us to note if we're using Blackboard. Firefox might be the best one for some of us. Not for everybody, but for some of us.
For some of us, yes. Okay, thank you.
Thanks a lot for sharing. Good points. Yes, Naomi. Go ahead. Naomi, you had your hand up. Is it that you can't share?
Hi, hello.
Yes, we're hearing you. Go ahead.
Yes, I have a question. So I'm with the Faculty of Humanities and in Education, and one of our I guess units, which is the CLL, they have some students come off like Joe Public that are part of our program. So they're not like they don't come to the regular registration route of going online to register. So we've been trying to figure out what is the best.
Uh-oh. Naomi, we lost you. We've lost you. Could you type it in the chat for us if you're hearing me? Because we seem to have lost you. All right. Are there any other questions in the meantime? What do you recommend for continuous assessments and other examinations that need to be done under examination conditions? No communication, no reference material, etc. We don't have any resources like that for now. The last discussion we had with exam section is that they have not changed the exam procedures and regulations yet. So for in-course assessments, continuous assessments, you have to try to adjust your assignments in such a way that it can be done either via my e-learning, via my e-learning, because that presents a fairly secure way for them to submit assignments. We don't have any resources, any of the resources for online exams as yet, and we don't have word yet from exams on what's going to be happening with that. So until we get word, we can't give you any advice on that. But again, as I said, we're noting these things and we will take it forward to see if we get that information. Philip, you wanted to say something?
I think just before Philip responds, I just posted in the chat as well with response to that, Diane.
Yes, I
If
saw it.
it's an in-course exam, you can't do it through my learning using the quiz activity. Now, and that is you need to be very mindful of the settings and parameters that you create within that activity. So, for example, you might want to consider the length of time that students have for the actual quiz or in-course test. Because if you give students too much time, then it gives them the leeway to refer to a textbook or or share screenshots with each other and all these different things. So you want to, for example, be mindful of the time. I usually narrow it down to each item. So I just a simple calculation. Okay, if it should be a fairly simple quiz or test, then you might probably want to give at least 30 to 45 seconds per item, right? If it's something more complicated, well, you already specialist, so you would know. Added to that, you want to randomize items, whether it's randomize the questions or randomize the options within the options within the questions. So these are different things that avenues that you can take if you should be doing a in-course online quiz.
Okay.
But when it comes to the final exam, of course, that's something that the examination section will have to guide us on.
Yeah. As Justin was talking, I put in the evaluation link as well as a link to email us if there's something specific that you feel we can deal with or assist you with. So Justin, I just want to ask if you could share.
I think Philip had a question as well.
Oh yes, Philip had a question, and then Naomi got cut off, and she was saying that they don't have to register online to take a course. It's their how they can onboard these students who use BBC. What? I'm not sure. I'm asking.
You mean, Naomi,
Are you
is it that
asking
you want
whether they would have access to Blackboard?
I'm not sure she might be able to speak.
Yeah,
she
she's
went
off.
off again.
All right, Naomi, we will. If you can hear us, we will have to deal with Naomi separately.
Yeah.
Philip, your question. I think we lost Philip as well.
Dianne?
I think Philip.
Yes, Philip.
Oh.
What just happened is what I really wanted. What I want to ask. The BBC assumes a reliable internet platform. Would you all recommend that you could do it at home, or would you recommend coming to campus to do it? And where in campus would it be reliable?
If we suggest coming to campus, that defeats the purpose of what we're doing now. The idea is for us to not be on the campus. So we really have to try to see how we can get that reliable access.
I'm just
I
talking
was
about
just gonna say that.
Just as me as the lecturer and not the students, because why I lost access just now is because of the internet problems.
Right. I would suggest that you go wherever you can get a good network connection. Sometimes that might be at a family's house, wherever you can get a state, and that's why. And this is good that you brought that up, Philip, because sometimes you might want to go ahead of time and test your network's capacity to facilitate the online session, right? So sometimes what I do is leave the session. You can access the session from an hour in advance, and that gives some time to test whether you can do a full session in Blackboard Collaborate, and you still have enough time to trigger a contingency plan, right, within that hour. But generally, I try to go wherever I can get a solid connection.
All right, Starbucks then.
I see we have a question from Patrick.
Hi, yes. Just clarify Naomi's question. I think what she's trying to ask is that CLL, which is a center, have students who do not go through the normal registration procedure at the university has, and they would like to continue doing some courses with their students, and she would like to know how those students who are not registered through the usual procedure can be included in BBC.
Thank you. I thought that that is what they were asking. We said this in the previous session that we have to find a workaround. We haven't found it yet, but we're working on it. And as we did this week with the top 5 questions, once we find a workaround, we will send out something that suggests what can be done. So that's one of the things that we have on the to-do list of working on what is to be done, along with asking about exams. Yeah. And so we almost at the end of the session. We do to end at 3. The last thing I want us to do quickly before we end is for Justin to share with you the repository site. If you all could please do the evaluation that I sent to you before in the chat. I don't know if you want me to post it again. But in the meantime, while Justin looks to set up that site so he could share with you, I'm going to post that again. So Justin, are you hearing me? Can you set up the
Yes, yes, it should be. Are you seeing it now? Yes.
yes.
So, all right. So this is what the site looks like. I posted this in the link in the
Just remind them what the site is. It's really for
right.
your when
This
you
is
put in everything.
This is the resource site that we were referring to earlier. Well, throughout the session. I think I posted the link in the chat some time ago. Let me just, but I'll post it again before the end of the session. So this is what it looks like. It's very simple. Right here, there's a general introduction to the. I can't see the link here because it's right, but it's a general thing. If you need information on the pertains to UE and the pandemic, then the link is right there at the bottom of this little blue. At the top right side, you're going to see a drop-down menu for staff and students. So you have one for staff. It would be My Learning. Some of the things we talked about. So, for example, My Learning, and there's training material there, self-instructional, or self-paced, I should say. And it covers all that we looked at during the course of the session. If it's a training tutorial videos that you need, or some sort of document that you need with screenshots and so on, then you're probably going to go for the first one, even if it's just a refresher. If it's something that you need to start from scratch, in terms of you don't have a My Learning account, or you're starting from scratch, then the second one might be good for you. It's a PDF that you can download. It's just a one pager or two pager, telling you with the links and everything that you need to go to. The final one here, Quest My Learning Enrollment Keys. Well, Dianne spoke about that, and we posted the link directly to that site in the chat. There's also Blackboard Collaborate, which is some of the things that we looked at as well. The how to use it, what system requirements what system requirements we have for Blackboard, how to present in it as well. Some things, how to execute a presentation or deliver online instruction using Blackboard there, and that sort of thing. The next link after that, we have some tips for teaching online, and that is really some instructional tips and strategies that you might need as we go into the online environment. All right, how to prepare online instruction, some of the instructions or rules need when giving instruction in the online.
Dropping in and out now.
And
hello, Justin.
Menu. We have tools to teach for online teaching, and we refer to this. So this has a good bit of information and just sorry, I'm dropping. Are you hearing me now?
Your audio is dropping in and out.
Hello.
Justin, your audio is dropping in and out.
Hello.
Okay, so I think that we're having some problems with Justin's audio. What I have done is I've put in the chat the link to the website that Justin is now demoing. I'm going to just put it in again for you all to see. Here it is. Okay, and so we're going to put the recording for this session up on that site later today, hopefully, as soon as it's downloaded. Justin, are you hearing me now?
Yes, I'm hearing you. I was hearing you all along. I think are you hearing me?
Yes, we lost you. So
Yeah.
that's why I was saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not too sure what was going on there.
Right.
But I was
So
just saying, the just as while we have all those things for staff, the same things I showed you, we also have it for students, right? So in terms of Blackboard orientation, My Learning orientation, technology tools for online learning and so on, all of that is there on the site as well. So you could share that site with the students as well. Dianne, you might probably want to tell them about the 5-question document that we were preparing.
yeah, so we prepared a document called the top 5 questions for this week that I mentioned to you all. And what that document deals with, we have the 5 questions that we address with how can I teach classes with more than 250 students using Blackboard Collaborate? How can I facilitate PBL, problem-based learning? How can I conduct labs? Where do I receive training in transitioning to online learning? And where do my students go for support? And that was sent out through Academic All today by the director of CPL, and that will also be put on this resource site. So each week we will compile the top questions in a document sent to Academic All, put on the site. And if there are any other issues, we ask that you please send us an email to that email address that I posted earlier. And so with that, it's 3 minutes to 3. So I want to just wrap up, just close off, and we ask if you want to post anything quickly as we leave. So thanks for attending the webinar. I really hope that we help you move forward, or for those of you who are already there, at least a refresher and a reinforcement of what is there. So over to you, Justin, to close off.
Yeah, I think we kind of covered what we needed to. Let me just say this: so in a situation that just happened where the internet dropped on one thing, what I did on my end, I'm logged in by 2 devices. So one being my phone, one being laptop. So when the laptop was kind of given some problems, I had it on my phone. It was just a matter of unmuting, and that's how I was still able to be in the session. So that is something, and I'm saying this because I know Philip raised an issue earlier, right? So that's one way. If you happen to have, your mobile device on a computer as well. So I think we covered all that we need to. And I hope that it was beneficial to you all, and we look forward to any sort of correspondence. If you need any further support, of course, you can shoot us an email, and we'll be happy to help. All right.
Yes.
So you can use 2 devices, just on a different No, I think I'm on the same browser. Yes, you can use 2 devices.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
In
great.
fact, that's normally what I do in my sessions. I try to have 2 machines up to so I can follow the presentation while I'm speaking to one device. Right?
All right,
No
great.
problem, Henry.
So remember, if you all need any to clarify anything, or you want to find out what is available, shoot us that email, check the resource site.
Yeah.
So that's what we're there for.
And
So
share with your
thanks a lot,
students out as well.
everybody. So we're gonna end the session now. And if there are other persons in the departments who want to get access, you could just send them to the resource, because I think this is the last of these sessions unless there's a request for it. So have a good evening, everybody. Bye.
Bye.